Hello, my name is Patrick Hood. I'm going to talk to you today about the history of the firefighter profession and what trends were like from the start and how they came to be today. Do you ever wonder how we do things or why we do things in our profession and why we use certain equipment or why our response structure is the way as it is? Do you want to know? Our profession is not only that what it is because of the ways of the world, it just has a lot to do with our ancestors' actions and how they accomplish the same task over time. I am a third generation firefighter with a large passion for understanding not only what my father did, but what my grandfather did in the fire service when they were the same age as me. Today I'm going to spell out the history of the fire service for you. I will discuss the evolution of protocols, equipment, and protective gear to help you better understand why our profession is the way that it is. Let's get started. Benjamin Franklin had an idea for societies to be protected by volunteer firefighters. This was born before the industrial age and was formed with respectable men that held a level of professionalism without pay. Yet, as the industrial age continued and a new version of volunteers came in, the new rowdy fire gangs whose behavior grew so egregious in New York, Philadelphia, and many other urban centers, the public lost faith in the fire service, especially in the volunteers. The recurring threat of fires, business leaders and elected officials agreed that paid municipal fire departments were the only option to provide fire protection for the municipalities. Where there used to be call boxes and geographic mapping as more manual way to obtain information, fire watchers were in place to roam the streets and sound an alarm. Some of those with manual pull boxes, known as box alarms, with specific numbers that would relay back to the fire stations and allow them to know where they were going to need to be going. Others were large wooden rattles to bring together the bucket brigades needed for extinguishment. Times have changed, as we know now that we have cell phones and you can make phone calls and navigate the streets and navigate where you need to go at a click of a button. Many stations and many departments, including my own and the volunteer fire department that I also work with, we receive text messages that tell us the type of call, where the call is at, and it's completely different as to what it used to be with fire alarm boxes or box alarms as they call them. However, everything started from the box alarm, and from there we grew into calling a fire alarm or a house fire or a structure fire, however you want to call it from whatever region of the U.S. that you're in. It is a box alarm or structure fire. Protocols in the fire service are very important as well as equipment. Obviously, at the beginning of the fire service, you had bucket brigades where they brought the buckets full of water to the house, and then came the horse-drawn carriages with the steam pumps. They were able to respond, but not very well or not very fast. Obviously, these were replaced by diesel engines, what we see today, that can provide 1,500 gallons per minute when supplied with water. Portable water pumps were the original forms of water application. Obviously, that means that was back when you had bucket brigades. You had portable water pumps that provided you water to your bucket, and you ran the bucket up to the house, and you ran back to the portable water source and got your bucket filled again. Response times, again, were less than desired. Most houses burned down. Not due to lack of effort, but lack of equipment, lack of training and knowledge, and that was just the time being, and that's what it was. It took a lot of people to put these house fires out with just buckets, and as you can tell with the way things are done today, it's done with less, but it's done with a lot more up-to-date equipment. As the volunteer side became more physically demanding, bucket brigades were also not offered for all of the buildings. There were fees that were collected if the shop owners wanted fire suppression by a bucket brigade, so it was almost an insurance tax. So if the bucket brigade came out and put your building out, or the contents or whatever was on fire in your building, they would charge you for it. These were followed by the advancement of the first fully dedicated fire service, where you were in a municipality or a town that had a paid fire department, and you didn't pay a direct fire tax to the fire department itself. Another piece of equipment that came about was the fire hose. Originally, it was a piece of flexible leather that allowed the user to make the bends in the house and make the turns that they needed to take, and greater range to get inside deeper into the fire, put the fire out from the source. Respirator protection was a not really thought of thing. They used to take their mustaches or take their beards and soak them in water and bite onto the beards or use them as filters. That's why you see mustaches on firemen today, and that's why you see mustaches on firemen or beards on firemen 100 years ago, because it was used as a filter. The idea for the filter was to keep out the smoke and the heat. As this grew, a mask was invented, consisted of 2 canvas bags lined with rubber. The airtight bags were sealed with corks until they needed to use them. Today, SBA filters accompanied by heat sensors, thermal imaging on Scott air packs, MSA, and obviously the other manufacturers probably are doing something similar. The protective gear has grown tremendously over the last 50 years. I would say it's grown great over the last 150 years. The way things are going now and the way things we're using is tremendously different than in the 1600s, when they had to deal with the fire, the heat, smoke, wearing just what they wore on the street. Now we have 3 layered coats, 3 layered pants with a thermal barrier, a moisture barrier, and an outer shell to keep us protected, whereas those guys didn't have anything. Obviously, as today, we've covered the fire service protocol, started how they developed over the pay departments and through the volunteer world, and the updated equipment from air packs to the turnout gear, the things that we respond to fires with. Thank you for your time, and thank you for those that came before us, so we can carry the traditions of not just the great mustaches, but everything else that helps us do what we do to save lives.